You have been rated as one of the top angel investors in Andhra Pradesh by INC 42.
Okay.
What are some of the qualities you consider non-negotiable while evaluating founders?
Mindset, attitude, risk taking capabilities for the founder as a team. The same company whom we were telling how to do business bought us. So this is karma comes back. So 5 of us who are middle management or lower middle management sort of guys deciding the fate of the senior management guys. Your boss's 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 boss. There's so many cohorts which will tell you what to do. But more importantly, today startups need to be told what not to do. If you ask me what's the criteria of investment, I invest in the person. 95% is the person, 5% is the idea. Because I have all these statistics, right? 95% of startups fail. I would want to refine that statistics. 95% of first-time founders might fail. There is a lot of disagreements among the founders. So there should be one level up, which is the advisory, which comes in and then gives a direction forward. Otherwise, it might be deadlocked. Most of the incubation centers have a selection criteria. So you're saying a set of experts who can evaluate an idea to see if it would make big or not. If that is in place in all these big incubation centers, why is still the failure rate so high?
Hello Ravi sir.
Hello, Mohit.
It feels great to be doing this.
Thank you. Thanks for having me here.
Sir, you have worn many hats from engineer, corporate leader, entrepreneur, angel investor, and now a key force in building India's one of the most reputable incubation ecosystem. Right, your journey right from the floors of BHEL, from boardrooms at Tech Mahindra, to leading and mentoring more than 100 startups from Vizag and beyond. What fascinates me on how one person, one thread, connects and runs through all of it. So, where did your journey begin exactly?
Oh, thanks. Thanks for those good words. I think I've done something good. I've given back something good. But okay, it's all started. See, I'm basically from Vizag. I call myself always this born, brought up in Vizag. I think it's the air out here or the water out here. What makes you is you become emotionally attached to this place. Wherever you go, you crave to want to come back and do something for this place. So there's many of them like us, and you call this group as stupidly emotionally attached to this place called Vizag. Probably you're one of them too. So it all started. I was born here, brought up here. Father from an army background. Mother is a typical housewife, but very well educated. At that, in those times, she was a MABED, but she's sacrificed everything for sake of the family. And I've seen my early growth stage. I was studying. It started with something like Sarda Bal Vihar, where the influence of Vivekananda, it started there. Then schooling, then I went into, from my third grade was at St. Aloysius. That time was a pretty big school to be a part of. And then moved to another school called SFS school, which is in Sitamdara. And finally, I jumped 2 classes from 7 directly to a matriculation because somehow people felt that I can take it. And so probably not having 8th and 9th standard in my whole education ecosystem, probably my fundamentals are not that strong. But anyhow, matriculation from Andhra University, it was easy, so I could go through that. And then 2 years of my intermediate in Mrs. Avian College, and then my 4 years of engineering, which was 86-90. That was from mechanical engineering from Geetham, which was at that time under Andhra University. So that after that, yeah, so that's my education. But after that, I worked for a year with BHPV, which is currently under BHEL. That was my first job, and then after a year left and moved on to do my management course. Then again worked with companies like Castrol, Larsen & Toubro, L&T, Switchgear Standard Products, and then Dunlop India, which was now not existing anymore, but it was a major player in the tire manufacturing. So I was in market research, production, and then went into sales. And after that, I had to come back to Vizag, or was operating. I was largely operating north coastal Andhra, right from Visakhapatnam at the north to all the way down to Nellore, or now what you call it is the border of Tamil Nadu. So the whole 9 districts at that point of time I was handling sales. Then need of the hour was to be in Vizag to support my parents to get my sister married off. So yeah, probably crazy guy at that time. Left a very well-paid, nice job, and then came back and joined a small college out here for teaching. I had to take care of the family for about a year and a half to nearly 2 years. About 1 year, 9 months. I was teaching first at a college called MIST, which is for BBA, and then and for MBAs and MCAs at the Paida College. I was a faculty for about a year and 9 months. Probably my best time of life because I used to be very pally with the students. We used to go win competitions, but we used to again have a great time together, uh, watching late night second show movies to whatnot. It was like more, they're just about 4 or 5 years elder to me, so I had a great time with the students who currently are still in touch with me. A lot of them are doing pretty good, so which is good. And then after that, I went to for my research because I could get through a good score of CAT. Then again, your sort of your CAT. Then I was also UGC. Um, what do you, there's something called NRF, net qualified, JRF, sorry, JRF and the net qualified candidate. And then I also had a very good GATE score.
JRF is, sorry, what?
Junior Research Fellowship, which UGC
Okay.
conducts once or twice in a year, and then you qualify for lecturership and researchship. So that also gets you you could join any of these institutions and you get stipend for doing your research. So that's one. And then I had a good 99 percentile scores in CAT and also GATE. All these three got me into IISc with a secondary support guide from IIM Bangalore. So it was again 3 years of research. So that's when till I was about 26, I was in Vizag. Then I moved out for 3 years to Bangalore. Had the 3 years of research.
Why
I did
Bangalore,
not.
sir?
I'm sorry.
For ISC.
University of Science.
Okay.
And I am Bangalore, which was my secondary guide. So computer science and technology from IIC, and again management studies from IIC, and I am Bangalore. Then after 3 years of research, which I did not go for my PhD because at that point of time, India, I'm probably still true. If you go for a PhD, you're looked at as a person who can only teach.
Okay.
And not ready for the corporate world. Probably the corporate world, and maybe just like R&D centers, if you're into pure research, might pick you up. Otherwise, very difficult to get back to the corporate world. So I finished my MS, submitted my thesis in strategic planning and strategy and technology, information technology and strategy related thesis. And then I've joined the Chandrakant Birla's group. I was in their corporate consulting group. I was also an executive assistant to Mr. Chandrakant Birla for some time. Worked with Caterpillar India, worked with setting up the Mitsubishi Lancer plant, which is the first sedan coming into India.
Okay.
And right from land selection of the land to commercial rollout of the product, and then 2 years with the group, and then moved into a management consulting firm called Renaissance Consulting, which later got acquired by Satyam, and it became part of the Satyam Computers at that point of time. This is late 90s, 99. And then I continued to work with them. I was in the US for about 6 years, nearly 5 years plus. Then with the first chance of moving back to Vizag, in 2006 end to head the Vizag center. But while Vizag center was one of the responsibilities to build it from scratch to what it is today, which is Satyam, and after the Tech Mahindra Center. What you see is where I was involved right from the scratch in building the whole thing, and even this phase 2, which came under the Tech Mahindra's regime. So that's initially was a 750 seater and then a 2200 seater. So around 3000 seater per shift is what you see there. I built it from scratch. So I always wanted to come back. So 96 to 2006, about 10 to 11 years, I was away from Vizag. So it was great coming back to Vizag. It's the first chance. In fact, I took a 30% cut in my salary wanting to come back to Vizag.
Wow.
Right from the US. So it was tough. I had the chance of having even a green card in the US because I was working with a client called General Motors. I was heading two clients in the US, GE, which was Satyam's largest client, and then General Motors. I was working in the telematics arm called OnStar. I was offered to as a program head out there, and then I was also offered that the GM will process my green card, but my heart was out here. So, and of course, parents was another reason why I wanted to come back. They were getting old. They were not getting a chance to sort of see their grandchildren grow up. I think for people, especially grandparents, nothing can give them more happiness than see and be a part of the growth of their grandchildren. So I did not want them to be denied of that. So when my daughter was born, they were there in the US, but I can see them that the sense of missing that great stuff of being a part of the growth stage of their grandchildren. That's where you get. It's like when kids are very young, you really get a lot of great stuff to it. You really have. That's the de-stressing for the parents, but it is really great stuff for the grandparents because that's where they are big influencers on how the grandkids grow up and sort of formative stages, right, of their thought process. Grandparents play a big role. So I thought they shouldn't miss that. So both the parents and the kids so moved back to India. So I was, and also the opportunity was to come back to Vizag. It was not easy. They've already identified a leader. Then I had to go and then fight it out and said, I'll do something which is different in Vizag. And they asked me, what is it that you would do? I said, I will create you the India's or Satyam's low-cost delivery center. Because at that time we were losing out business to competitors. And it was probably a little bit of dollar difference in which we are losing it out. Then I created a low-cost delivery center, which is also a model at that point of time was identified by NASSCOM as a process innovation model for which we won those big awards. But it also created I bought GE as an account, which was working with back to Vizag, and built it, and then built about initially about 700 odd people center in Vizag as part of the phase 1. Then came the phase 2. Then Satyam went through a fiasco. It went down, and then Mahindras took over. See, this is also again I call the theory of karma. When I was young, my grandparents or parents used to say that if you do good karma today or this life, your next life will be good. But I think supercomputers have also come up there. So the cloud, which is nearer to heaven or this thing, has come up. And it's so fast in computing that karma comes back to you in this life. You don't need to wait for one more life to get the fruits of good karma or bad karma. So 2002, Satyam was consulting the Renaissance Consulting. Satyam Renaissance Consulting is what we used to call it. We were consulting with the Mahindras, Mahindra and Mahindra Group. Closely worked with Anand Mahindra and team and the leadership team there. So I was a consultant, a management consultant for manufacturing, supply chain consultant, both for vehicles and spare parts for their automotive and tractors. So this was something called a process-centric enterprise, which happened between 2002 to 2004, before I moved to the US. Sorry, I'm very sorry. It's between 99 to 2002. 2002, I moved to the US and came back at the start of 2007. So that 2 years, we had transformed M&M. Today, what you see as their platform for XUV platform is something that was strategized and was the ideation, the seed was put in 2002.
2002, okay.
So as part of this transformation exercise. So, and come 2009, which is 7 years from hence, the same company whom we were telling how to do business bought us. Satyam, the whole group, forget about management. So this is karma comes back. So 2009, when Tech Mahindra took over, in fact, it was worked good for me because whatever I was trying to do at the Satyam Center Vizag, because I was trying to create something which is a low cost delivery unit, was sort of not, it was done as something aloof, cordoned off from this thing because company did not want to, because it was low cost, the salaries were not the same thing, because whatever we are doing in application maintenance support, you don't need great guys to run that stuff. So I was doing with BSc, what do you call it, computer science, as well as guys who do not find a job, land up in Amirpets, bring them back to Vizag, give them a job at a lower cost, but at least get them to create a career. But overall, the cost of the whole system for delivery would come down drastically because the cost, because these are all Vizag guys who within the 10 kilometers of the center were bought in and then started working. So for them, while the top line, which is their salary, is low, but the savings are the same. If the same person, for example, today, if I get X in Vizag for the same standard of living, and I'm living with my parents, I don't have additional social costs involved. But if I'm for the same sort of a job in Bangalore, I think you should get at least 2.5 to 3x to survive. So I've used that in the reverse order. So whatever was X that was being given in Hyderabad or Bangalore's or Chennai's for Satyam freshers, I made it half, 1/2, and said that's what you will get if you work for 3 years in Vizag, but I'll take you after 3 years, I'll take you to the same level. So that's how that whole model was pretty much was not so much liked by in Satyam, but it had to be continued because we suddenly from about mid 50s sort of $1 million account went all the way to 100 plus $125 million, which is the upper limit. So that was happening because of the low cost delivery center and we becoming competitive on the price against competition and then being able to get a lot of business. So that while Satyam did not like, because to the outside world they did not want to appear to be a because they were equivalent to Infosys or TCS or Wipros or HCLs in what the entry level salary was, 3.5 lakh. So when I brought it down, they don't want to be looked down as something that Satyam we branded, so they made a separate entity for this. But when Techem took over, they found bang for the buck. So then they liked it, and I got into something called Shadow Board there, and 3 years with 2009 to 2012 with Tech Mahindra. So that's when I got a chance to go and study at be a part of the Harvard Mentor Manage programs and other stuff. And I was part of something called Shadow Board. 5 of us were handpicked from the whole company, and we were working directly with the board of directors, which included, of course, reviews with Anand Mahindra, but the board included people like Deepak Parekh, who was the chief of HDFC Bank, and Achutan, who's no more, but very big guys. And that was a great experience because it was straight sitting in boardrooms where I had an experience with, again, the Chandrakant Birla group, CK Birla's group. But again, got back into the boardrooms and started observing things pretty close, strategies and other stuff. Anything that even the board had wanted to implement had to go through the shadow board. This is something that Anand Mahindra has bought a concept from UK called shadow parliament, where citizens critique the decisions taken in the parliament before they go into the public. So a very similar strategy, and we sort of not just only critique, make corrections, and finally it has to even pass through us before it goes as a strategy into the company, anything related to the policy or strategy. So that's how, that was my coming back, 2012. I moved up the hierarchy in Satyam to become the head of corporate quality, which is like the equivalent of chief of quality. I was also the chief of information security and chief of business continuity. And 2012, I had my academic to, you say, academic excellence, and then on the personal front, I was always like the student union president. I was part of a lot of clubs. I was running a lot of shows.
So you picked up a lot of soft
I was
skills.
into all sorts of sports and all that stuff. So it
Okay.
was a very balanced life that I had in college. So I was not sacrificing things for sake of academic excellence. So I was lucky. I had good friends on both the sides. You can say two faces. I had friends who were great in academics, and I had friends who are like bindas types, the cool types, the thing. So I had both.
Okay.
So, and because when you get into something like being a student union president, at that time it was a big thing. Now it's all toned down. People are more um, get into, if I have to fight you, I have to fight you on the video game.
Yeah.
But there we used to fight physically. A lot of physical fights and all this stuff. So it was a very good. Yeah, it was a good experience, and probably my father being from an army sort of a background, he gave me a free hand. You say if you get into a fight, you settle it at the college, don't bring it home. So finish it out there. So there were a lot of instances where we did a lot of, yeah, there were maybe you go back and start thinking, it's a little bit stupid sometimes, it's funny. We used to have fights with guys in Bulai College, because we used to go for Bulai College, used to be at that time the college where students had the most fun. The rich kids out there with, at that time, having a bike or a car was something was beyond imagination for a regular student. So it was going there, or you can say the elections in Bulaya College, or the cultural fests out there in Andhra Medical College. You can say it's for again to see the what do you call it, that fever, right, of students, and all what you see in a movie, and all that, because in your college it's very disciplined, it's very normal, but when you go to these degree colleges and other stuff, the cultural fest to the elections was big fanfare. And of course, men will be men, so it's the good-looking girls used to be out there. So then fights, right? When you go there and you say, when you start talking to the girls from that specific college, those guys will come. Then you say, you come to my, so people, when they come to Rishikonda, we used to beat them up. When we used to come they used to beat us up. So all these things, what you see in the movies of those old days used to happen. So I had a very balanced life. I would never regret saying that I was always sitting and trying to be a bookworm or a nerdish sort of character. So I had a pretty, balanced schooling, or even college, or even when schooling I was not at all. I was very bad in school studies and all that. Suddenly a transformation, something happened in my matriculation. I suddenly started doing well, and then that continued into my future. So it was sudden transition. I don't know what happened.
So was there a career trajectory you picked up, like a job or a designation or something? Was there like a eureka moment I'm talking?
Okay, your eureka moment in what you're talking, school, college, or any time during?
From college to into the corporate world.
Okay, corporate world eureka moment is basically, I think I would cherish my time as part of the shadow board member at it was Mahindra Satyam before it became Tech Mahindra. So 5 of us who are middle management or lower middle management sort of guys, deciding the fate of the senior management guys, your boss's boss.
How is that exactly?
That's because there were 2 entities, Tech Mahindra, which bought Satyam and created something called Mahindra Satyam. So our job was first is to ensure that we don't lose people, we don't lose clients, and ensure that there was an ROI, and how much of, there were numbers that we were given as targets, 5 of us, to attain that. Once the stability is attained in Mahindra Satyam, the big job that we were given is what was there was 2 CEOs. There was CEO for Tech Mahindra, Sanjay Karla, and there was a CEO for Mahindra Satyam, CP Gurnani. The same with COO, the CPOs, the Chief Marketing Officers, everybody. There were 2. Chief of Qualities and everything. Everything was this. Now, when they took entities had to be merged in 2012, we were given the chance to give our first take on who would be the future CEO, the CPO, or COO, and the recommendations were taken very seriously. So you're talking about somebody like a CEO of probably the merger is one of the top 5 IT majors in India, and you're deciding that, and you're in something like a middle management guy. And then when the declaration was happening about the upcoming CEOs and other stuff, I think this was very surprising when I was just called into a boardroom. I was in Vizag, I was handling the stuff, and suddenly they said, come down, fly down to Hyderabad. And the next day morning, I entered the boardroom. All the big guys, including, I remember at that point of time, CP Gurnani's boss, Vinit Nair, and his boss online was Anand Mahindra. And then they said, okay, great stuff, you've done this thing. And now you are the head of corporate quality, which is the CQO. So that is like suddenly promoting a person who is in the middle management to senior management.
Okay.
It's a double, triple sort of a promotion overnight. And it took a lot of time to sink in, because it's not so easy to suddenly, when you're at that level, to move up the ladder just like that overnight. So all years of hard work, probably I had always this mindset of an entrepreneur, doing something radical, something different always, which gave me a little bit of edge and probably got me this opportunity. So when in that room, when all these big guys said, okay, you're now going to be the head of corporate quality, while there were 2 people who were already heading it, between the 2 we had given a recommendation. They said, no, we're not going with, even with the between one of those 2, but it's now you're going to head it. Now all the best, take over. So it took a lot of time to sink in, because suddenly, even in my hierarchy, the person that I report into, overnight you become his boss. So, it is something that was, I think probably, I think the biggest achievement for me, for all the work that I put in the corporate world, was this. So 2012 was when it is, when you become part of senior management, you will have to move to the power center, but I never wanted to leave Vizag. So I had to move out. I tried doing it for a year in the same position as the chief of quality or head of corporate quality. But it didn't work out for me, because I always wanted to give back something for Vizag. I wanted to be a part of this place, its growth and its story. One day I would want to be associated with the story of Vizag. So that's what drives me even today. So I said no. A great job, very well paid. Every year, tons of stocks coming my way. And the stocks were going up because Mahindra Satyam was bought at very pittance. I remember the rate was about 58 rupees per share at that point of time, and we were getting shares between 58 rupees to 110 rupees today, which is about 1400, 1500 rupees, with some bonuses and all that coming in. So I knew there's a lot of money, but my heart was still with Vizag. So probably son of the soil or whatever you call it, but there's that emotional attachment. I said no. Okay, I left. So 2012 July, I left Tech Mahindra and took up, and then it's a lot of turnaround stories in my life. So took up a small startup which was not doing great in the healthcare space. Took over. It was about 20 odd people. Made it a 350 odd people and built that and sold my stock. Then again built a IT company from scratch. Again, quite a number, 100 plus, and then sold my
So
stake.
what IT company is this?
This is still existent. It's called Schemax Tech. They're a lot into products, especially we build products in the apparel space, in dealer management, auto dealer management, into a lot of then ERP for marine and aquamarine stuff. So the multiple products that we built. So I was part of that company for about 5 years, and then sold my stake to both the cases to the promoters. So my 2 first entrepreneurial, you say, tries of entrepreneurship. My first initial, that's about 2012 on to 2019. I had both of them were, I could come out successfully, make some good money, and that I started investing into the startup along with something called Alco Partners. This is my first venture with another four of the guys. Our first investment was into this startup called Interview Buddy, which is doing great till even today. And then slowly, after a few years, then post-COVID, I became because 2019-20, I started getting a good amount of money. Then COVID hit. Post-COVID, I became and started investing into startups. And then 21 and AHub was something that I took up, and we were doing a lot of strategy. That was the second phase of COVID. So it something that we couldn't while some of the construction happened and the building was there. So 22 April was when it was operationalized. So it's been about 3.5 years, you can call it. I've been successful in creating in a university, largely where people say it's very difficult to do stuff. Yeah, I feel a lot of pride in what I've created at Andhra University. It's called the Andhra University Incubation Hub, or AHub. 200 plus, now 206 or 7 startups. India's probably only financially self-sustainable ecosystem. But see, and I never had a grant or a fund. It was a loan that was taken from the university, built it and repaid. So India's first financially self-sustainable academic incubator is what we built. The model is being studied. It's become a case study now. So that's something that was there. And in the last few months, also I've taken over. I've got in Andhra University. So the idea was to create one of India's largest financially self-sustainable university incubation ecosystem at Andhra University. That's the vision with which I started. Partly been successful. We today have about 110,000 square feet of incubation space, which is pretty big. And probably the space with which we are growing by next year, we should be about 2 lakh square feet of incubation space, which would put us in the big league along with IT Madras to the T hubs and all that. We are slightly below that, but we will be in the top 5 to top 10 in the space perspective. And also the number of startups will be about 350, which is also again put you in the top 5 to 10 players in the incubation, academic incubation ecosystems or government supported incubation ecosystems in India.
So what is it you did different in the 3 years of inception of AHub that made it self-sustaining financially compared to all other incubations in India?
Okay, good one. I ran it like a business. See, most of the incubation centers are built on government funding. I did not have one. So there's always that need for funds, need for survival, just like any startup. So it was treated just like a startup, and you had strategies which where you have to identify as to how do you sustain and quickly become financially sustainable, so that you don't need to depend on somebody for your salaries, to your operational expenses, anything, all your operational expenses and all this stuff. Thanks to Andhra University, the capex came in, which is the building and other stuff, but we could. And the first, maybe after a year and a half, we got our first fund from, and now still the only fund that we got through is the Nidhi ITBI from Department of Science and Technology, DST fund. That got us to accelerate bigger. We started with 2 floors, DST got us another 2, a CSR fund from Sandhya, thanks to those guys, 1 crore of fund, we could start off with that. But what the way in which we built the Andhra University incubation ecosystem is again a different thing, is because when you do not have funds, you have to look for people who have funds. So now STPI's incubation ecosystem is part of Andhra University incubation ecosystem, which is another 35,000, which will open up in June. 4 years back, we got NASSCOM into the NASSCOM Center of Excellence for AI and IoT, one of the 4 centers into Andhra University, and that's also running in Andhra University now, which I, for the last 8-9 months, I head it. So then getting a lot of people to come and invest in the ecosystem and build it from scratch, and then we built a 55,000 square feet of which is now we are in the VMRDA, the tech, right? So it's about bang opposite on the other side of the road is called a building called Element. 55,000 square feet of biotech, genomics, pharma, and food incubation. So yeah, so multiple again on the we have the Avanti Feeds again sponsoring and giving us a lot of money in setting up a skill development, but also an incubation center on by the beach road near behind the yoga center, which is into marine incubation.
Okay.
So these are things that we started building, and so we had a lot of yeah. So if you talk about the strategy behind this whole thing, it's basically the advantage I had as an incubation head was I myself as I'm a startup founder, and I've founded about 6-7 startups now, and I've invested in another 7. So I have 14 active investments as of today. So I know the DNA of a startup founder and offers what makes a startup tick. Sort of, there's no wood here, but touch wood, fingers crossed. I've only had one of my startup in the insurance tech, which did not really take off, but I sold it before I could, within 3 months, at the same amount of investment that I put in, and I got back my money. And that's the one sort of I could call probably a bad apple, but one in the food space, which is a small investment, which I bet on a guy who was very passionate about it, built a brand. But again, I would probably get back the money that I put in. These are the two probably of you can call as my bad investment, but the others have all grown to valuations of 20 to 30 to 80, 100 crores sort of businesses. So I've been a little bit sort of successful on the startup investment side, and I've taken those lessons into running the incubator. So what a startup needs is basically, there are a lot of stuff, but I largely concentrate on the 3 M's. One is mentoring. There's tons of stuff on your internet which will tell you what to do. There's so many cohorts which will tell you what to do. But more importantly, today, startups need to be told what not to do at different stages, depending upon where they are and all the variables that they are facing. So very critical and important to tell them what not to do. That's a mentor. The second M would be of course, your market access, which is very critical. That's what probably attracts a lot of startups into AHub. We do a lot of events where it's more like a buyer-sellers meet through hackathons and other things, live industry problems, and you find a solution, you get business. So getting business to the startups is very critical. So that is what attracts you. So if you're a startup and if I'm getting you business, you probably are the happiest guy and would want to be a part of the ecosystem if I'm able to get you your first client, your second, third, fourth clients, or something very early stage, which is very critical for you to survive and to grow. You get your first few clients, then you're set, because based on that, the money flowing in, and then you're able to invest that back into the company, as well as you have already a proven clientele or who can give you testimonials for you to get more. So that's the second end, which is market access. These two are very critical. Third comes in, which is the money access part of it, is finding the investors, the right set of investors. Largely here would be HNIs and angel investors. I myself have invested in a lot of these startups. So I think these were the 3 things that were part of the strategy, core of the strategy. So bringing in my learnings from my corporate boardrooms, from the startups that I've built and run or that I've sold, into running an incubation center probably helped me grow to what it is today.
Amazing, sir. So you lived at the intersection of being an entrepreneur, failing as an entrepreneur in certain cases, and excelling at being an entrepreneur, and also running an incubations at different levels. So people ask, incubators exist to support startups, engage startups, create more sectors, verticals, and create more employment. So with traditional business-based startups, the revenue comes in quicker, maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, and it becomes easier to get the whole thing going. But when it comes to emerging technologies like AI, then there's quick commerce, and we see, like, even with Paytm, there was insane amount of foreign capital flowing into the market to make the technology a possibility. Like, there were more than three different VCs that funded more than 500 million to $1 billion to companies like Paytm, PhonePe, BharatPay to kickstart the digital infrastructure ecosystem in India, and paid off well. But right now there is AI happening, generative AI happening. Right now Zepto is taking a lot of funding. They're raising another seed round, and if God knows if it's a bubble, if it's going to fall or not. So my question is, who really pays the bills, and when is it that that bill is justified and not justified? On
Oh, okay. Loaded question. Um, Everybody who invests, like I'm an investor, I'm a very small guy. I have my own criteria of what's the right investment, what's this thing. For example, if you take me, I invest in early stage startups. So I'm the third F. Um, if it's early stage investment, there are F and Fs who will invest in you, which is basically friends and family.
yes.
So I'm coming as the third F, which is basically I'm a fool. Early stage investor, not knowing whether it will be a successful stuff. Probably in certain cases, no revenue at all. Maybe a patent or so, something that you believe that this will be a good story for the future. You call it. So I call myself a fool. Very early stage, with no, probably most of the time, no revenue, no validation from the market. So if you ask me what's your criteria of investment, I invest in the person. 95% is the person, 5% is the idea. Because Me Too's and similar stuff, when it is not something that is patentable and which is totally a different stuff that you built, which I know Piyush Goyalji was also talking about it. Not much happens in India. You're more like a Me Too sort of startups here. Because there's a large market and there's a lot of appetite out here to grow. And that means that it's a execution game, largely in India. The innovation game is not played by most of the startups. It's more the Me Too, like you have, let's say, e-commerce, somebody getting into it. It's more of how well can you execute it than your competitor and be able to make or create, identify a niche, ability to execute, then expand, then start. Then of course you will have competition overlaps, and then trying to eat into market shares and other stuff. That's bound to happen. So while I'm being the third F in the startup ecosystem, um, I was very careful in choosing people that I invest in. Then comes the idea. So when I do my validation, there's this external validation, which is what idea, size of market, what problem are you solving, the solution, TAM, SAM, SOMs, all that stuff, and valuations based on all that stuff, which is your external validation, which is all number game. But will those number really, whatever you're projecting for the next 5 years, and based on which what you're talking about, your big valuations and all that, is that going? Who's going to make that happen? It's the guy who's come up with the idea. It's the founding team or the founder. So that is the critical part for me. That's what I call as the internal validation, which is within the team, the person, the entrepreneurial mindset, where the person can hustle, never give up, and make it happen. I also find it a little bit, and in AHub, we don't have a selection criteria for a startup to come in and be a part of the ecosystem. I was asked by none other than Narayan Murthy ji, such a big man, and then his question was obviously, what is your selection criteria? And I said, we do not have any. And of course, I had to explain why we don't have something is 2-3 things are my observations. Then I've given him about 3 points. I said today most of the incubation centers have a selection criteria. So you're saying a set of experts who can evaluate an idea to see if it would make big or not. Do the filter, there's a milestone, you cross that and you become part of an incubation ecosystem. If that is in place in all these big incubation centers, why is still the failure rate so high? That's one. Two is, I think most of the cases, or nearly 90+% of the cases that I come across, what you start with and what you are after 2 to 3 years is a changed version. Pivot is part of the game. Pivoting is part of the game. So it's so common to see somebody start with that, dabble with that idea, go experiment. This is like a trying to create a prototype in the maker's lab.
Okay.
So AHub is like a maker's lab for an entrepreneur, for a startup guy. Come experiment. Not happening, pivot. Try it out. Based on your feedback from the markets, you start correcting yourself and then somehow make it happen. So I again invest in these people who have the readiness to accept, or their ability to accept a failure and then quickly change the model, business model, or sometimes the whole idea into a different thing. Like Interview Buddy, from a B2C, we completely changed into a B2B before it became successful. So this is what you invest in, such sort of people who are ready to try it out. So that's also the model in which I built the incubation ecosystem. You come in, you try it out, you might fail. So this was the answer that was in. One is basically, if this was a system that exists right across India, why is still so many failing? If there is an expert who is saying this will be successful, so get them into incubation, your success rate should be upwards of 50 to 60 to 70%. Why is it not so happening? So that means the process of selecting a startup before it can be part of an incubation ecosystem itself seems to be a non-value add for me. I might be wrong, I might be told, but this is how I think about it. This is what I have taken into my learning and then adopted at AHub. Second thing is, you come here with something raw, very early stage, experiment, and you pivot. That's the second part. Third is, of course, the question is then how would you know whether your startup would be successful or not? They would be pivoting, and one day you'll have to say if they are successful or not. Is, I said, simple one metric, which is as long as they're able to pay the fee that is required to be paid to the incubation center for the seat or the number of seats or the space that you've taken, as long as they're paying, they're there. The day they realize that this is not working, will not be able to make money, they don't have the persistence to continue, they will shut down and go. So that's as simple as that. The ability to continue to pay for the incubation services itself is the third part of it for their continuity of the startups. Thankfully, we had a good amount of success rate of startups because the belief in founders and all that stuff. So how I invest is not that somebody comes and pitches to me and then I would start. The model is totally different. It's not somebody coming and pitching and then I'm evaluating, then I have a team which does due diligence and all that. Mine is a different model because I'm sitting in an incubation center. A lot of people used to ask me, what the hell, why? You could do a lot of things better. You have your own startups. Why are you not part of it? And then why are you coming into an incubation center? Two parts again. One is trying to give back to the society, which is basically something that this ecosystem was lacking and something that I feel that I have again sort of been a catalyst in bringing back life into the Vizag's startup ecosystem. I'm very, I take a lot of pride in that. And two is, I'm closely observing founders coming. Now you are a founder. I observe those people for 3 months, 6 months, 1 year before I take a decision to invest in them. So I said again, 95% of my investment is in the person, 5% is this thing. And my term is simple, this thing with them. If you fail with this idea and you lose the money, that's okay. But when you're going, and because I already see that the person is not a person who will give up and somehow, because see, we have all these statistics, right? 95% of startups fail. I would want to refine that statistics. 95% of first time founders might fail.
Yeah.
The percentage could, I don't have research numbers over here, but I'm assuming that the percentage would come down to the 60s, mid 60s, if the guy is second time trying it out. First time failed, then get into second time and trying it out. And when you're doing it for the third time, probably that would be 30% or less. 70% of those people usually should be successful. My little amount of data in my own incubation ecosystem. But if you still fail with third time, probably you're not cut out for it. You should probably exit and do something else.
Right.
My 1, 2, 3. So it's not always 95% of the startups fail, which is become a very generic this thing. It creates a lot of fear psychosis and a sort of in students or somebody who wants to get into entrepreneurship, want to be entrepreneurs and all this stuff. But if you persist and keep trying, you probably second time failed, second time. So the deal with the founder is you fail first time, but when you do your second thing, I'm also part of your second time tryout or your third time tryout. But okay, I'll do a deal only up to the second time. I'm hoping that if 60 odd percentage has failed, maybe 35% of my investments are anyhow successful. From 5 to 35% is a big leap. 7x percentage in success rate, which is good enough. So that's what I count on, and I built my whole strategy of investment in startups or building the incubation center.
So there's one question I wanted to ask, more like a channel of chaos. I wanted your opinion on, and your like your journey and what you have learned so far on. So Y Combinator says that more than 60% of startups fail because of co-founder issues, and I've noticed a lot of startup founders in their in the early stages with a good product, a good service, or early traction or proof of concept working out, they simply don't, in certain cases, have an open mind. Maybe an investor, maybe a user, or maybe someone from the team tells you should pivot on this, and does not do that, and end up failing or end up being on a rippling thread where they're failing, they're losing money, and they're losing the team. The website is filling with more bugs, and before you know, it's all dead. But again, for certain different founders who said no to those people, like maybe Elon Musk, then they said you should shut this company off, you should sell the stock or whatever. He chose to say no and choose to fight it and play the odds and win. So, what is your opinion on this? Like, when should a founder have an open mind, or like believe in himself, and how is that different from stupidity?
Oh, okay. Yeah, believing yourself is part of this thing. That's where you go to any incubation center, you will have say believe in yourself. Or most of the people, when they say you should have belief, of course, in life, forget about it would be a startup or you're a student or whatever you are. Believing in yourself is the first thing. It's a must have sort of a thing. You have to believe in yourself, otherwise you don't have belief in tomorrow. So there is a belief on yourself and your abilities or capabilities. But there's something called confidence and overconfidence. See, today, even if you're talking about students and all that, I'll relate that again to a startup founder. That's what I see, largely student founders who come out, especially in the Indian context. So there's knowledge and there's skill. Colleges are churning out a lot of people, especially engineering. The knowledge levels are pretty not so great. It's you study to pass. You have 2 midterm and 1 semester, and somehow you are scraping through that stuff. If not for the knowledge, you should at least have a skill, which will take you through and make you a good entrepreneur. So when you sort of find a set of people who come out and then neither do you have a knowledge or the skill in the area of or the sector or wherever the domain that you want to do a startup. And you have furthermore 2 or 3 set of people who are basically probably your classmates, your friends, come together and say, okay, this thing is great. I can sometimes see that air of confidence not backed by um, good amount of knowledge and skill to ability to make it happen. That's stupidity. And if somebody tells you that, you should be able to accept it, critique it. If somebody critique what they're saying, it's not just the idea. It's again, see, there is idea, and again I said the people part is the ability to execute the idea. When it comes to the ability to execute the idea, there's so many factors that come in. You're talking about co-founders fighting among themselves and all that stuff, right? There are a lot of these factors that are the reasons why a startup fails. Sometimes it's not the business model; it's something else. So it's you can believe in yourself. It's like, I think people will relate closely with sport or even, yeah. I'm not prepared. I don't even, if I'm watching a lot of YouTube videos on how to play a specific sport. Let's say I love tennis. I play tennis every day. I'm watching this thing and suddenly get into a tournament and say I will execute it on the field. Watching these videos, it's like training a pilot only on a simulator and directly get him to fly a big airliner.
Doesn't
The
work.
chances of failures are very high. You might be lucky to be successful in landing the plane or be able to hit 1 or 2 shots, and then after that, so there is something that you have to have. It's not just having knowledge of how that is played, which is maybe a lot of YouTube videos on how to play a game of tennis, but you have to be coached, you have to be mentored, you will have to also practice, sweat it out before you find the rhythm to be a successful professional player, if we call it. So this is also the same thing. But if you just have watched the videos on YouTube or somebody told you something and you attended some cohort and all that with not a good amount of ability to execute, you just come in and then say, yes, I know how to do it, I've done it, I've been there. So there's nothing like I've been there and done it and all that stuff. So it is, so you look at both the skill and the what do you say, the knowledge, the skill, which is the ability to execute it. If you have both, then you believe it. And sometimes you say this, right? Initially, when you had talked, people were rejecting, and then suddenly somebody accepted, and they became a big hit. People to go through transformation as you start. See, these are largely people. It could have happened in most of the cases. The rejection could be initially you probably had a good idea, but you could not present it well. And then as you started seeing failures, you're correcting yourself, and then you're going to the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, sixth investor. Maybe the seventh one found it, but because you have been correcting yourself, please understand that it's not the same pitch that is doing from investor one to the investor seven. Based on the questions asked, based on the responses that you've got, you are getting you're sort of getting you're getting critiqued and saying this is something that's missing, and you're changing business models, you're changing your numbers, you're changing your idea, tweaking the idea a little bit. All the stuff is happening, and you're getting better as you go to the next and to the next and this thing. Maybe the seventh investor, by the time you got in, you got it all right. The person invested and you became successful. It doesn't mean that it's the same pitch deck that all the six who have seen previews, but probably might be different. So that's why they could have rejected. So you just cannot jump to saying that, okay, seventh person accepted so and so company and they became a big, so six people are not right in their decision making and all that stuff. We can't jump to those things. We don't know, because the person could have gone through a transformation and finally this thing. Like I was terribly I was terrible at academics when I was in schools, but there was a transformation that happened, and I cracked probably what should be done right. And from my 10th grade onwards, I became a good performing student. So it happens. So that there's a transformation. You find those things, and then it clicks. Okay, if you ask me, I pitched it to the same pitch deck to 10 investors, and these are the people who picked me up. That's again matching to all these things, right? Every investor has their own um, things that you want to associate with sector, the type of the founders that they are, the cap table that you currently have, or what it would look in the future, and also what I can bring to the. If I'm a strategic investor, I also look at this. Is it something that I can bring to the table along with whatever they're doing, so that I become a strategic investor, or not just put money and I'm observing and I but see all my investments. I'm actively involved. So I'm not somebody I'm investing and I'm watching from far as to how they're doing. Of course I am, but I'm also something that I'll try and contribute. I do the market connects, I do a lot, again, reviews, changes in product, changes in strategy, all that stuff. So I'm pretty much involved with that. So depends. So this is something that stories, these is only a half told. The real stuff behind it, you have to dig deep to know the reality.
Sir, you have been rated as one of the top angel investors in Andhra Pradesh by INC 42.
Okay.
What are some of the qualities you consider non-negotiable while evaluating founders?
Non-negotiable, of course, I said it's the person that comes first. Their mindset, attitude, risk-taking capabilities for the founder as a team. Then one statement that you made, found co-founders not working well or gelling good with each other and all that stuff. So that's
So, do you look for qualities such as empathy?
um, empathy towards what? Towards society, towards each other, towards what? So
Towards
you'll have to
each
be.
other? Maybe.
Oh, of course, that's important because sometimes it's not all about money. You could have 3 or 4 co-founders. Everybody brings. See, this is sometimes when you have a team, people bring a certain amount of skill, competence to the table. And I would always consider, rather than 4 comp science guys coming together, I would say the rate of success is higher if people multi skills, not from multi disciplines. That's again knowledge, but multi skills. Like somebody is good in operations, somebody is good in sales, somebody is good in what do you call it, strategy, somebody is good in something like your financial analysis and all this stuff. So set of people who together make a good thing is and you need, of course, somebody who's a good leader to lead them all in the right direction. So understanding each other, what they bring to the people, and there could be situations when everybody will go through highs and lows, and when somebody is going through an ebb, empathizing and then leaning on each other's shoulder, you will find a lot of lows in a founder's life cycle, or in the life cycle of making something successful. Then a lot of highs, a little bit of highs that will keep your hope up, but a lot of lows where you what do you call it, help each other out. You tend to be, it's very natural and normal to get demotivated, depressed, and all that stuff. But not everybody will be the same at every point of time. So you need to, yes, sort of suddenly you need to go for next round of investment, and you decide it's going to be bootstrapped. One of the co-founders says, "Okay, I've run out of money. I cannot put any more money." So how do you take that along? And then because then after that, it's 4 guys who probably have more than one guy who couldn't further this thing. So how do you feel that he's part of the still of the same team, the same way in which they worked? It's not like the feeling that he's now lesser of the five co-founders. So all these things, these are all things. And those things, as one of the examples is saying, people as co-founders if they don't go well with each other, it could lead to a disaster. It happens because egos come in play, and then Sometimes success gets into the head. Sometimes more money, lot of money coming in, sort of, I did this and this is all, and because of me, the other guys are making money or things. So all these things, once that comes in and that level of maturity doesn't exist, that different people bring different things to the table. It's not who contributed more, who contributed less. So that level of maturity, and along with that comes empathy and all these things, which are characteristics of an individual. So that's all what you have to look when you're looking at internal validation of that specific co-founding team. How will they go with each other over a period of long? Because this is a what do you call it? It's not a year or two. It's at least
Decade.
at least a decade of together, running together.
Most founders, like in my circle, what I've observed, are like friends. They come across the problem either together, or maybe one of the partners recognizes the problem or the need, the latent need, and the other person just hops in and trusts and goes along building their venture. And with time, what happens is they have like these pair of co-founders. They might not be like the perfect pair of business and technical co-founders, but they have absolute empathy for each other, the ability to be there and understand and all. But like on paper, on technical, or an incubator selection criteria, or maybe a VC selection criteria, they don't go through, because they need the founders to be one person to be handling tech operations, one person to be handling business, doing sales and that kind of thing. So these founders, like, they're like, I've seen types. There's the ones that have like resilience, and they stick through. They stick through. And like for them, if luck of the financial burden doesn't come down, they go through that journey, and with mistakes they fix themselves and they get somewhere. They launch, and once they launch, yeah, they are on an exponential learning curve, and with time, with years, everything gets fixed. But with the people who don't launch, with the people who don't publish or put a version out there, who have the resilience, but they're like fighting the wrong battles. They're trying to, take multiple VC calls. They're trying to make a perfect pitch deck. They're trying to create a perfect website or a perfect version, or something that is not something that actually gets them users, or gets them to the point of mistakes. And there is advice on internet. There is a lot of learning material, but choosing what to pursue when, and how much, and when to stop, and then when to stop on the iteration, when to go out there and just do other things, make other mistakes. So there's like no guide to this. And
Okay, it's, I wouldn't say that a group of friends come together and start up, and it might not, whether will it be successful or not. The simple principle is, together, what is it that each individual, so you have to be uh, objective enough to analyze as to what each individual is bringing to the table, and and together as a team, will they be able to make it happen? If there are four friends coming together and all are great on the technology domain with zero business domain expertise, maybe not a good fit. Then they have to get somebody from outside who can give them that business. So building a great product is not the end of the story, but how ability to sell it and reach to the right markets and all the stuff, and becomes a very critical part of it. And ability to even make it, there's sometimes which are technically if you're talking about one is, should friends come together and become co-founders? Yes, they can, provided the co-founding team has the different skill set that they're bringing to the table, and that it makes it complete. You can never You can never be a complete thing. There will be gaps. And then you will go through all the steps that you're talking about, highs, lows, and then people coming in, and the issues could be market related, could be product related, could be delivery, production, finance, not having enough money while everything else is in place. It could be multiple things, and people take on different roles at different points of time. So you empathize, and if the guy one of the guys having a lot to do, this is what founders do. You call empathy and then help out the guy, or help find a good amount of support and team for that, and then doing it. See, this is when all these people are working together, and there are moments where you need help, and who is the person who will take up that role of being able to lead it in the right direction, is when sometimes the role of a mentor or an advisor comes in. So someone above that who has been there, seen it all, brings back all the people together in providing the right direction forward. So that's when the role of a right advisor, it could, if it's smaller stuff, it could be mentor, but it could be somebody on your advisory board, which also is critical and important. It's also what investors look at. If you have the right set of advisor, they also feel that these guys are in the hands of somebody who's mature enough to handle when the tough situations come in, and ensure that they still bonded together and then go forward, rather than, see, sometimes there is a lot of disagreements among the founders. So there should be one level up, which is the advisory, which comes in and then gives a direction forward. Otherwise, it might be deadlock, and they're not moving forward because A feels this is the right way and B feels this is the right way, and between the two, somebody will have to decide, while the other co-founders might not be. So you have an advisory. So there are ways out in how you come out of these situations.
So what was the most expensive lesson as an entrepreneur?
Expensive lesson of a mistake. Okay.
Like it came at a cost of mistake or cost of friendship, cost of a loss. Was there anything like that?
I would say startups founders are persistent for funding. Sometimes you have this feeling that maybe this model might not work, and you really are hitting the fence, yes, between yes or no, to invest, and have not decided, and maybe you're leaning even towards a no. But some startup founders are very persistent. They keep on following up. They try to stay up the ante and then say this, that, we did this, we're doing that, and try and get you to convince an investment. 3 months, sometimes 6 months, sometimes more than that, to a year, they keep coming back and then say, why don't you, and all that stuff. Maybe sometimes you give in to that persistence, thinking that you start believing that probably that's what the person will be able to take it to the market, and take that idea with the same level of persistence, may be successful. Might not work in all the cases, because if the person is also along with the persistence, has the same mindset of, this is something that I have experienced, but is emotionally attached to the same idea and not ready to pivot, change, because it's not working. So persistent for you to invest, added, which is a good character of the startup founder, but added with that, if it is coming with some level of you can say ignorance, or I don't know, you call it ignorance, or being adamant about not budging from a specific idea which is not working, and continue to put your effort, time, and money on something that's not working, but not being ready. It's just like that emotional attachment with that idea and somehow trying to make it work, or rather than trying to break up with the idea and pivot it or move to something else. That is something probably I've seen happen in one of my investment, which is the one which is not doing good in the. I said insurance tech, I made my money, but I could make the money that I've invested back. This is something in the food space, and probably I will again have an exit after 2 years of investment, but I would not make. I would just make maybe bank interest sort of a thing. So this is something that not so expected for the amount of risk that I have taken.
Amazing, sir. Sir, if you were to be a 19-year-old, go back to being a 19-year-old in first year of college of engineering, what is it you would do in the next 4 years through your college?
Oh, I would love to reboot and restart from college. I would see. It took me to be 40 before I turned an entrepreneur. So yeah, I was and that I took the risk. Even okay, it was a bold move because I was in a senior management position very early, 39 years being a vice president and on the even a head of quality across the globe for a large conglomerate. Was great going, but again I've taken risk. But given a second chance, and if I'm back in college, and what I did not have when I was young was any exposure to what entrepreneurship was. There was nothing, zilch of government's involvement of getting students to start early in the world of startups, entrepreneurship, ability to be creative, ideate, and then take up entrepreneurship either immediately after college or at least 3 to 4 years into a corporate life and then start up with all the funding support and all that never existed. I wish I was born in this current era and I'm one of these Gen Z guys with all these
You have
opportunities.
everything today right now, from RTIH, the space,
Oh, now
coding,
which
ecosystem.
is soon going to head this RTIH of Vizag. There's mentor networks for you. There is
So
all
many
these
internet
hackathons
tools.
with where you have direct market access to government and the private sector, and if you're able to crack something like IDEX and all these platforms where you crack the solution, you have a direct market access. You've and there's tons of funds that are being pumped in right as grants. If you want to develop, you have something meaningful, you have a patent, and then you want to prototype, immediate funds up to 15 lakhs is available. And if it's something which is pretty big grants going up to 50 to a crore to 5 crores are available. And I have one of the startups which has got 5 crore grant, not even something that you need to return, in the semiconductor space, deep tech, and for developing a AI based chip. And in the program chip to start up from IT, it's 5 crores of grant. Something, forget unimaginable, it was never heard, it was never there, that ecosystem, forget about being so that was and we never in the college were even had any exposure or training or anything towards. It's only the privileged few who were kids of or second, third generation entrepreneurs who knew something about business that came into the college, but probably had the idea of going back and taking up their parents' become the next generation entrepreneurs in the same business. But this is something that I missed my time. But if I get a second time, I would start early and then do everything pretty early into entrepreneurship during my second stint.
So earlier in the day, you mentioned that when you work for others, you're not an entrepreneur. Did that comment actually push you to start out your entrepreneur journey in 2012?
No, yeah. See, I was told you I was pretty radical and trying to do something different. I considered myself during the once I got into consulting, and I was consulting through Satyam Renaison into for Mahindras, for TI Cycles, for LG Balakrishnan, a lot of big corporates. This is nothing but entrepreneurship. You're strategizing and you're putting strategy in action, because it was just not a strategy document that was given. We had our consulting was not giving a strategy document and asked them to execute it, but we were executing strategy for them. It's strategy in action and in outcome based payment models that we had. So I think I always had these entrepreneurial skills within the corporate and built models which were little bit different, had a great ROI and or business, something that led to a lot of business, something that led to an impact on the top line, bottom line sort of a thing. So if I look back, while I did not know at that point of time, but I was largely an entrepreneur, being a part of Shadow Board at Tech Mahindra, or now the Tech Mahindra, which was Mahindra Satyam. This is all entrepreneurship, and these companies had that right from that time of existence. So that's why these companies are the ones which are great. So they identify those people who think different, think outside the box, give them these opportunities for. That's how you come up with new verticals, new lines of businesses in these corporates. So I think very fortunate to be part of the Mahindra's ecosystem for those few years, which embodied more of my entrepreneurship out there, and being able to experiment with things. I think also was in the US when I was more with General Motors in the OnStar front. We're always coming up with new products and services for the company and getting all the IT systems behind. So I was more like the subject matter expertise on telematics and trying to build products around it. So that's again entrepreneurship. So I think that's what helped me easily transition into the world of real entrepreneurship. So I think today is the same thing. You find a lot of companies which are, there are certain sectors which totally R&D dependent, so they will find a lot of entrepreneurs. But you also have these instances where companies now, corporates, they encourage their employees to go find and sort of, you can say, startup and invest in them. I've seen that happen. I've seen people, and you come up with a great idea, they say, okay, go ahead, and we would also want to be a part of this thing, and we will fund you, take them into. So you will find corporates now having their own incubation centers. You see Mahindras, GMRs, all these guys have their own incubation centers, and something that's good. They nurture those ideas from their employees internally and move them towards an entrepreneurship and have a investment. That's a great strategy too, because I wouldn't, if somebody who's working with me 4 or 5 years has a great idea, is moving out, rather than giving a handshake and saying, great, all the best, serves the notice period, he goes out, starts something and comes up with something great and makes tons of money. And maybe sometimes it could become a competitor for me, or it might be too costly for me to acquire that, because it's a great idea. It's something that we as a large organization couldn't run that quick and build that solution as such, and it's becoming bigger. It's good if you believe that this has got something future and there's a strategic fitment to what you're doing. Invest in the person and give him the wings and the wind under the wings to let him fly and be part of the success story. And I think that's happening pretty much with a few of these big corporates, which is good.
So I know it's getting late, sir, and before we close off, there is one thing I wanted to ask. Like, you choose to stay in Visakhapatnam because of your family, grandkids, and all that reasons.
No, I don't have grandkids.
I mean, for that.
Yeah, for my parents' experience to the grandkids, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But there is like relative IQ, relative problems, relative funding, depending on the city you live. In the sense, if you're in Delhi, if you're in San Francisco, the kind of funding that comes in for a startup, or the kind of ideas that come, and the kind of founders and the kind of change is also extremely incremental. And you as a person have a lot to grow and pick up when you're at those places. I would say there's things to solve and things to build on, things to feel correct, and at here also in a smaller city. But don't you feel that you miss out on being on a growth curve, or like changing a sector in industry entirely if you were at a different place?
No.
Why not?
if you're successful, money chases you. And that need not be okay. People.
But this is not about money. This is about the passion. This is what it
Oh
does
yeah,
to you.
yeah. You will find equally passionate or more passionate people in tier 2 and tier 3 towns. With the help coming in with sort of incubation ecosystems like the RTIH and other things that are happening in this currently in this stage, which is a great combination of the government, which is public, private, which is private players, 15 large corporates, and then the academic institutions all together coming and creating ecosystems. And these are none of them are tier 1 cities. And when you have help like that, and if people use it to the right advantage, a lot of ideas come from, and there are a lot of big ideas that actually come from the tier 2, tier 3 towns, because the problems are more. The problems are different in a tier 1 city, but okay, you might have access to mentors, you might have access to a lot of events, you might have access to, what do you call it, deals and all that stuff. But if something that is doing great, which is again from tier 2, tier 3, okay, Zoho is one great example, people will come to you and then they will invest in you. Yeah, see, even today, even I was talking about the semiconductor startup that it started off in Vizag, but later they did not move to Bangalore because for the fund part of it. They were even in Vizag, they would have still got the 5 crore fund because they were building everything here. The reason for moving to a larger city was two things. For them, it was talent, ability to have the right people to work on your product, and two is also access to labs or fab labs and other stuff, which is not available out here. But today the ecosystem is built that you don't need to. You can have freelancers working somewhere. You can still, today we are now trying to build that model here. You start here, you have your headquarter, you could have, it's like, where is Microsoft headquartered? Seattle, not Silicon Valley. So it started there, but it has offices in Silicon Valley, it has offices in Bangalore and all that stuff. Even a third world country, if you look at it that way. But that's where, because there is people out there, they need that, and there's different things that is. So we are saying today, start in AP, whichever RTIH that you want to. Start in AP or start in any this thing. You don't be part of an incubation or acceleration ecosystem here. It is not wrong to have an office in a Bangalore or Hyderabad for sake of something else. Or if you want to get your product tested, you probably have to send it to Gift City in Gujarat or even out of the country. Like for example, I have one medtech startup where our product had to be built all in the US. And a lot of IoT product companies, their product is built, miniaturized and designed better and built better and all that in China. Doesn't mean that you have to go and set up your startup in Guangzhou or Nanjing or Fusan or any of those places. You still are here, but you use, today it's a connected world, you can do that. So today I don't think it's anymore a challenge that you have to be in the tier 1. A lot of people now have come back and started asking because they want a good work personal life balance, and Vizag gives you that. Imagine being in a Bangalore or in a Hyderabad, stuck in the traffic and all that stuff. If you think going to offices, going to all these things is your advantage, but see the amount of time that you waste on the roads trying to be a part of that and come back. So now they say I can attend those if I want once in a while and be a part of those ecosystems once in a while. If I have to go for a large, let's say there's a big startup conclave that's happening in Bangalore, you go attend and come back. But people now are preferring to move to tier 2 this thing. Like just like Austin has come up in the US as an alternate to Silicon Valley, the tier 2 cities in India will emerge, and it is the time, it's only a matter of time that you'll find places like Visakhapatnam, because it gives you a better balance, and of course you have access to all the stuff. You might have a small office in some incubation center in Hyderabad with another 2 or 3 people, because those guys don't want to move here. So you will have your shuttle offices all over the place, which enables, because there's incubation systems. You take a Regus office, 2 or 3 seats there for those 2 people to sit, or they work from home. Today, a lot of this, my son works for one of the largest fintech company in India, but he's working from home. So doesn't need to be in Bangalore all the time. Okay. So probably goes once in a month or 2. And why can't a startup operate on the same fashion? And it will happen. There's so many people now talking to me who are from Hyderabad to Bangalore to Bombay's wanting to move to a tier 2 city, which gives you all the bells and whistles of what you get in a tier 1 city, whether it is your day-to-day life to your nightlife to a but a great balance between work-life balance. And sitting here, I can see the blue ocean out there. And if I want to be there, it takes me hardly 5 to 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a lot. 5 minutes, I can reach the place. Where will you get that sort of an experience? So, go to the IT hills, the Rishikonda ITSEZ. Sitting on a hilltop in an office, valleys and where you stay, the houses there, and it all plateaus into the sea, which is a beach, and it's all about 10 minutes away. You're in the, what say, sort of less exploited virgin beaches and all this stuff. Who can give you that sort of an environment to work where, and you know, startup guys work from anywhere. It need not be, that's how you see this incubation center setup. It's not fixed desk and all that stuff. They go, they sit on a bean bag, they go hang out in some place and then, or sit in a coffee shop and then build stuff. Sit by the beach and build stuff. So that's a environment that gets created in a tier 2, which is extremely difficult to find in a tier 1 sort of a hustle bustle stuff is too much to handle. So, as I said, like Austin's got created in India, time has come like places like Visakhapatnam, Vijayawada, Tirupati's and all these places, Anantapurs, of course. Tier 3 would be Rajahmundry, but at least these cities have something to give in the common space. An example is 88% revenue generating startups out of 200 plus in AHub sort of a place. And if you hit 350, we're as big as something like maybe 350, and out of which if you still have 80 plus 80, 88, if you're able to maintain those numbers of 88% revenue generating startups, we're as big as any large startup ecosystem in India. Like maybe we are as big as in number of startups like a T-Hubs and all that stuff. So you can, and I've already seen, maybe this is the last thing that I've seen. I have startups which have reverse migrated from Hyderabad. I've already startups which have reverse migrated international from Mauritius, from Singapore, from Sri Lanka. I've already startups from 3 countries in Vizag. For different reasons, they're here. And these guys have actually, one of the guys who's come from Singapore actually went and checked out a lot of incubation ecosystems and decided to come to Vizag. So he's going to be my case study or a testimonial of why he chose Vizag over any other tier 1 or tier 2 destinations across that he had seen. So this is something that I had a learning, and then I started, now I'll start positioning it that way. So the possibilities for tier 2 cities like Vizag is tremendous. So it's just that you do a right branding and putting it right forward and get a lot of people to come and experience, do a lot of events, let people come into Vizag, experience this. And it's very common when people come in, they experience that. Even big leaders say, oh, I would love to settle down here. I would love to move here. It's easy for a startup. For a large corporate, it's difficult. But you can see large corporates have started looking at Vizag, started setting up their offices in Vizag. And I know because I've set one and I built one in Vizag, which is now the Tech Mahindra space in Vizag. I was the first employee here. And I know what all the checklists that we do as part of this thing. And today, I know what is the checklist that is there. And there's a big chunk of things where work, personal life balance, leading to, you know, when the market was pretty bad and attrition was beyond 24-25% on an average for the IT industry, 2009-10, Vizag was at 4 to 5%, which is a huge indirect cost. Direct cost, it's a huge, what do you call it, human capital investments that you save. Because when you do the accounting right, you will get those savings in a big way. So those are things that these tier 2 towns can offer you. So it's just a matter of time, and that's why you see that all these big guys are now coming. Google says, okay, $100 million committed for tier 2, tier 3 cities. So all these big companies have now started committing and having a separate fund for tier 2, tier 3 cities. And that's going to get bigger.
Yes, sir. And it was a power-packed session, sir. And thank you for taking out time from
Thanks
your...
for listening. That's your patience, Mohit, and really loved speaking my heart out. I love my voice, so and at home you're hardly heard of, heard of or heard to. Yeah, so it's a great chance for me to speak my heart out. But
Honestly, sir, it was not
frankly
possible.
speaking, it was wonderful recollecting all my good old days right from the childhood to how what Vizag has given me, and probably my turn to give back to Vizag. Yeah, more than this is a place that has given me everything what I am today, and it's probably the time that that I have to give back to this wonderful city of destiny. So thanks for having me.
Yes, sir. It was not possible to summarize your life's work in a 2-hour session. But definitely, I want to talk more to you and learn a lot more from you to navigate my
No,
own
we learn from
challenges.
each other. There's a lot of things that young guy, I would never dare to do a podcast at your age. So I would have never dared to do that. It's not an easy stuff. And so there's certain things that are in you, certain characteristics that I have to appreciate and learn. So if you, and when I was your age, if I was asked to do a podcast, I would have been very nervous. And you really very maturely handling stuff at such a young age, which is something that I have to learn as how you've been able to handle, compose somebody who is twice or more than that your age. Ability to handle that is not an easy stuff, and done a great job. So that's something. So that's why I said we learn from each other.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking out the time.
Thank you. A wonderful time, and you have a good evening. Thank you.
Yes, sir.